Hello, we're back again today to talk about some more screening tools that we have available to us. So your due date has come and gone, first by a few days and then by a week and then by a week and change, and you're beginning to wonder if this is ever going to end. And you're also beginning to wonder what's going on in there. Is there a reason to be concerned? And if so, what can we do to alleviate those concerns? First of all, you may have been wondering because there is a lot of talk about the increased risk at going past your due date. In particular, people talk about the risk of stillbirth, that it goes up. It just keeps going up and up. Well, let's back off on that a little bit because there's some skewed mathematics that goes involved in that. Let's say that we're following 1,000 pregnant women, and at 37 weeks, they're all pregnant, and going forward, let's say by 38 weeks, 100 of them have given birth. So now our denominator is down to 900, and we're looking at a complication rate not out of 1,000, but out of 900. So then we go forward to 38 weeks, and let's say another 250 of them have given birth. So now we're down to, 650? And our denominator keeps getting smaller. By 40 weeks, another 500 have given birth. Now we're down to 150. Our original sample size was 1,000. We're down to just 150. Each person has almost a full percent effect on the final outcome. So when you look at stillbirth rates or any complication rates that seem to increase as time goes on, keep in mind that the pool of people to choose from keeps getting smaller and smaller as your pregnancy progresses. So is it actually more likely? It's really hard to tell. It's really hard to know how to do that math. And different studies present it differently. But nonetheless, I can see that there are concerns. And what do you do about that? Well, we've been talking about testing all along. And we've been talking about why you want to gather information. First of all, what is the information you want to get? Basically, you want to know if your baby's still okay. Well, how do we measure that? How accurate is the measurement? And what are we going to do with that information? These are the same principles we've been talking about all along. What is the information? How accurate can we gather it? And then what will we do with it once we have it? So in our case, we have a few things that we can look at. All of them are basically looking at, is this baby okay? The very simplest thing that we can do is something called an accelerated auscultation test. And it's really just a fancy name for, we're going to listen to your baby for an extended period of time. We can do that right in office or in your home. And we can listen either with a fetoscope or with a Doppler. The only caveat is everything else has to be really quiet so that we can hear all the subtleties. And we'll listen for several minutes at a time. What we're listening for is called heart rate variability. Basically, we don't want your baby's heart to sound like a metronome. We don't want it to be completely even. We want there to be some response, and because the baby is moving. Think about any time that we have been resting for a little while and then we stand up or we do something active. You can feel your heart rate raise. That's what we want to see. We want to make sure that your baby is moving and that there's still growth happening. And if that isn't happening, if the heart rate does sound like a metronome, it could mean the baby's asleep. It could also mean that the baby is really conserving energy and it doesn't have energy to move around. So an accelerated auscultation test is the simplest way to do that. The next level up from that is the same idea. It's called a non-stress test. And this is where they have the monitors that they strap onto your belly, much like they do in a hospital birth. And it takes 20 or 30 minutes. They get a strip. And what they're looking for is the same thing. How many fetal movements are there, and does the heart rate vary? Does the heart rate increase and then go back down? And if the baby seems to be asleep, then we might put a little buzzer on your belly. It doesn't sound very nice, but it's basically kind of scaring the baby to make sure that the baby can move and can react. And if they do react, we want to see their heart rate increase a little bit. So that's what we're looking for. And then the next level up from that is something called a biophysical profile. And we're basically on a scale of 1 to 10. We're looking at, is this baby still okay? The non-stress test is part of that. And a good reactive strip will give you 2 points. Non-reactive strip is going to give you 0 points. Other things that we would look for are in an ultrasound. We're not so much looking at growth this time. We're looking at, is this baby moving? We're looking at gross motor, fine motor. We're looking at practice breathing movements. Babies practice their breathing. They don't breathe at the same rate that they will once they're born, but their muscles that control breathing are still contracting so that they will be prepared to breathe when they are born. So each of those things will give you another 2 points. And then the final thing, and some places do this and some don't, but it's a placental grade. We look at the placenta to see, is this placenta beginning to deteriorate? Can this placenta continue to sustain this pregnancy? And that's graded on a 1, 2, or 3 scale. 3 being this placenta is really getting past its prime. So when we take all of those points and we add them up, if you have a score of 8 or 10, you're doing okay. And maybe we can keep waiting for this baby. If you're getting into the 6 or 4 range, maybe it's time to start thinking about, should this baby come out? So those are all the things to think about. Again, are there strong correlations between all of those scores and the exact outcomes? It's a little bit of a toss-up, but we can see some evidence that either this baby is still thriving, or maybe this baby is not so happy in there anymore. And all of that can also be a piece of the puzzle for what you yourself feel about this baby. And either way, at just past 41 weeks, this cannot go on much longer. The end really is in sight. So keep that in mind too. All of these decisions may be a moot point within the next few days. So we have the tools if you would like to use them, and we will continue to have the conversations about what to do with the information that we gather. But either way, you're going to be holding your baby very, very soon. So let's keep in touch and let's keep talking.